Okay, so we're going to show you my favorite technique for gathering. First of all, I'm going to show you the basic stitch that we're going to be doing. You've probably seen this. I kind of call it the Zig Zag Gathering Method. What you're going to do is you're going to set your machine right at the edge. You're going to put it onto zigzag. I like to change it to around 4 to 4.5 depending, and then I'm going to increase my length as long as it will go on my machine. We're looking at 4, so I'm at 4.5 by 4 length. And then you're going to take your thread, top thread, hold on to it, lower the needle, pull the needle back up, and we have to do it a couple times. That bottom thread didn't want to, whoop, there it is. Okay, so then in this technique what you normally do is you would pull out your thread from your bottom and your top length far enough to where you would reach to the end, or at least as long as you need the total gathered piece to be. And then what you do is you simply hold on to these and zigzag right over them. So we're just going to go down one side and up the other. And I like to keep it on the top. You can hold on to it as you want, if you want, and it will gather it as you sew. Or you can wait till you get to the end. Okay, so this is the basic technique, and we're going to be using this, but we're not going to be just using thread, okay? And then you can even lock these in. Okay, so this technique is great if you're just gathering something small, short like this, and you're just going to be attaching it straight onto the sleeve. You just even out your stitching, even out your gathers and your little tucks. Okay, so now I'm going to show you my favorite trick. And I have this very long ruffle that I need to gather. This is almost 100 inches long. So the traditional gathering methods of using 2 threads would be a nightmare on this. And even the zigzag method works great, but you're stuck with having to gather everything evenly, and that's where I was kind of frustrated with those techniques. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up using elastic thread. Now I know sometimes people like to zigzag over their own thread, or they use fishing line, which works good. It's stronger, it's not going to break. But what I like about the elastic thread is that you have some stretch with it and you have some give. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zigzag right on over the elastic. And this is my skirt that I will be attaching it to. So I'm just going to get a rough idea of how wide I need to make it, right? So I have 2 pieces. So my skirt is going to be 4 of these lengths. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark my elastic, because it's much easier to mark it now and to kind of do some of the gathering as you sew than to have to try and pull it all through after. So what you're going to do is you're just going to mark, so that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now I'm going to come in a few inches because it's always a bit easier to stretch it than it is to make it smaller. My stitches in. I'm going to start on a seam. Okay, and I want to lock this one in nice and tight because I don't want it coming loose on me while I'm sewing, because that would be a real, that's a pain. So if you want, you can go back to a regular zigzag and then just do that. Okay, and then I'm going to go and increase my length. I'm actually going to keep this one at a 3.5, I think, just because then I don't have to worry about my stitching showing after I'm done serging it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give it a light tension on the elastic as I sew. I'm going to go all the way around. And sometimes you have to go a little bit started there, and go on top, and boom, boom, boom. You can go slow or as fast as you want. Try to keep it to the edge. Try not to go off the edge. Try to keep a little bit of tension in it. What I'm going to do now, I have my 2 marks close enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. and you're going to tie them in a knot. Okay, and you want this knot really secure, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Now, if you were doing regular gathering stitches, you might now be on your second pass if you're lucky. And then you'd be stuck doing this for, I don't know, this is the part that gets me because I'm very particular about my gathers and it just drives me nuts trying to get them all even. So as you can see, it's already starting to gather a bit because I was pulling it as I sewed. But here is the magic to this technique. Well, what you do is, I don't know if you can see it on the screen because it's such a large piece of fabric, but you're just going to stretch it all the way. All the way, all the way, all the way. So it's nicely stretched as much as you can. And this is why you want to make sure everything's tied and nice and secure. And then you're just going to let go. And it's like almost perfectly gathered. We're all ready to go now for the top. So we've gone this giant ruffle onto the skirt. And now we're going to take this skirt. And we have to get this skirt to fit this bodice. Okay, so again I'm going to just mark the end. Mark one end. And then come down here. Now if you want you can mark the middle like that. It'll give you a little bit better guide as you're going through, just to make sure you kind of line it up on the other side. Okay. So our piece is ready. You don't have to do this, I just find it makes it so much simpler as you go through. I know there are a million different methods for gathering. For me, what makes this one my favorite, especially when I'm dealing with a circle, is adjusting the gathers. I hate having to do that the traditional way. I always end up just fighting with it for so long. So we're going to adjust put back on the zigzag, and you can go the widest you want, 5.5, 6, 6.57. It will make it easier to slide through. You just have to make sure that you stay within your seam allowance. So that's why I usually go with a 5, 4.5, 5, somewhere there. And then I'm going to lengthen this. But if you do too narrow of a zigzag, it's not going to adjust. It's not going to slide through it as easily. Okay, so again we're just going to come back to the starting. And you're just going to do a few spots and zigzag right in. Not nice and secure. Okay, and get ready to go. And hold it in the middle and give it a little bit of tension. Another thing you can do if you want to be very particular is you can lock in those stitches and you get to the, if you see I lined up my dot, is right on that seam. And you just kind of lock it in there. And that way it's not going to come loose. And that's done. Okay, so we can cut this down, give ourselves a little bit of room. And you're just going to pull it, tie this off. Hold it in your hand if you want to make sure you don't lose it, because that's sad. It has happened. And you stretch, stretch, stretch nicely, stretch, pull, 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 and it's like magic. So stretch, and it's gathered. Okay, so I'm going to sew that onto my bodice, and I'll meet you back here. Now I showed you before on the other sleeve, I just did the regular, what I call the zigzag. You can do that, I probably would do that on this because it's such a small piece, but if you want, I can show you really quickly again. going to want it to come to here, okay? So here to here, and you're going to mark that. So you hold it on that side, you hold on that side, and you're going to just pull and let go. And it's gathered. Let's see if it looks better than my other one that I did with just the zigzag. Oh, okay, so my zigzag one, remember that one? I just went over the threads. I didn't use elastic. So that means I have to now go all over the sleeve. Okay, so start here, and I'm going to have to gather all the way up till it's the same width. Okay, that's good. And then I usually tie this in a knot, and then you just have to kind of play around with them. And when you go to pin it, you kind of fiddle with them a bit more. Or you have this one, and just lay it on, and I hate to say it, but even on something this small, using the elastic is just, it's just that much easier.